Hi guys, it's Corey. Decided to do another recording of another one of my pieces. This one's going to be a little bit different in the fact that it's kind of like a creative story thing that I did, trying some new stuff. So, I'll go ahead and get started. It's called a Clockwork Mash Up. As the gears turn, the wheel of the tiny pocket watch moves the minute hand forward, striking 5 minutes after 2. A sigh and groan, teeth meshing in his mouth. The immeasurable fool, again he's late. And on this date, it's unacceptable. I'm sure he must know of the fate given to those who make me wait. An impatient tick and tock as the handheld clock grinds forward again. Oh, good heavens, the man is dead. I'll be sure the watch has his head. Few taps of his cane tip covered in gold. A solid sound, a chaotic time strikes as it hits the cobblestone road. 60 seconds more and the brass hand ticks towards a new home. By God, I'll stick it on a pike, or better yet, have it stuffed and mounted in my entrance hall. A shrill whistle of steam and the rattle of wooden wheels. All of the noise too small an appeal to soothe the man's anger, the one wearing a bowler and form-fit coat. A slip of his tongue and a barely audible word the rabble around must not have heard. A gentleman must be known not to curse. Time is a precious commodity of his, and for sure if another minute passed it would be complete madness. The fool must not tarry a minute more, or he won't be able to afford even the cheapest diseased whore. 1 last minute of time, 1/6 of an hour past 2 in the afternoon, and a small man appears. A torn vest and shirt, his whole self covered in dirt, blood on his face. He's such an unmentionable disgrace. You worthless man, where have you been? And to arrive with such complete lack of grace, why even show your face? The small man stands silent, head towards the ground, afraid he must be, too much so to make a sound. He thinks about his family, 4 kids and a wife, and is determined to not shed a tear. It's always a fear when around his master. For the man still seething at such a small amount of time is glaring in fury at the waste of space to his side. Well, open your mouth. Speak. Shaking in anger, knuckles as white as bone. If the small man refuses to speak, he won't just be merely shown what happens to those who disobey. Master, it wasn't my fault. A stammer, a quiver, an obvious struggle. 2 men much larger mugged me. A brief and sharp whistle of sound, and there lies a small one lying on the ground. You are useless. Such an absolute waste of my time, and as punishment for failing, I'll be sure to catch your mind. I've let this happen once too often before, and for sure you have not understood what wrong you have done. As for the consequences of failure in front of Artemis Cornelius III, the tall man above takes just a tiny moment to think. I shall have your house taken and family put to the street. The small man's face, turning to white, stammers out the one thing he could not afford. No, you can't, you mustn't. I can, and I will. A small chuckle, and eyes peer towards a sky filled with mechanical wonders. All the actions next were such a blur, I wouldn't be able to properly tell it all for sure. Within seconds the tall man was down, eyes wide in fear as the people around began to form into a crowd. The small man was tiny, that was a fact, and that made it harder for the larger man to act. The small man, heart filled with rage, had taken down a giant in the middle of the day. He took this gentleman's own cane and shoved it through his heart. And the crowd, all staring in fear and awe, couldn't make way fast enough to allow the bribed officers through. A cough, a last remaining sputter of life, as the bolder man fell from his throne. He threatened to take my family away from me, to ruin their lives and to do it out of mockery. It was all too little too late, as the watch grabbed the small man's arms and threw him to the ground. 10 years of indentured servitude, 10 years of violence, ended in 10 minutes. The very same amount of time he had been late. Iron bars and the squeaking of rats. That's where I ended up to record my story. And as I was escorted into a small one-man cell, I could not begin to describe what kind of hell this prison was. I bribed a guard to get in to see the smallest of men who caused such controversy. And as I stood there, stomach afloat, I watched a weak soul continuing to gloat. The years had not been kind, as his family had died. And all of it to save the very sanity for which he refused. We spoke, or at least tried, though the shell of a human was much more gone than I had hoped. He ranted and raved, and I sat and listened, every second in this dungeon making me more the weary, as tears and sound came rushing down my face. This once whole man had 2 daughters and 2 sons, all under the age of 12. His wife was a childhood sweetheart who had lost her family along the trip to the city. And here I sat in comfort as the world wasted away, every individual working themselves to death under fat cats wearing bowlers and form-fitting coats. You see, the men I sit with are tiny in stature, weak in muscle, and too scared to speak. It was almost too much to believe. But believe I did, and this was often wrote on a press that made papers for the public. I was granted a chance to change the world around me, and with such little words I tried. But for tonight, I shall dine with leaders of a movement to usurp a throne. You see, the public, though afraid to speak out loud, has heard the silent sounds of revolution. They came to me, Devin Fay, a writer and publisher of anything worth the time. Through a sequences of events far too large to record, we have started our own word-filled war. We have gathered resources, outfitted our troops. You see a small boy on each corner shouting out to passerby, holding a stack of truth. And tonight, while we dine, pitchforks are being sharpened and torches are being lit, while waiting for the papers to litter the streets with the headlines saying, "We are tired of being poor, tired of seeing good men being put down. We, the revolution, have taken the bowler hats from their heads and sit on their thrones ourselves." So that was my story type creative thing, Clockwork Mash Up. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a good day.